am Anna Seawold, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about growing ourselves while raising our children. I'm a psychologist, educator, and parent coach. And on this podcast, I explore how you can connect to your authentic self, practice radical self-care, and raise emotionally healthy children. Let's break the cycle of generational trauma for a more peaceful, kind, and compassionate world. What you're about to hear is a 16-minute conversation generated by AI between a female and a male discussing 6 specific episodes of my podcast. Here are the episodes that were included in the AI conversation. Why self-compassion is essential for every parent's mental health with Kristin Neff. 3 ways to prevent parental burnout with Gawlik. Are you a controlling parent? Here is what you need to know with Emily Edlin. How to make parenting less intense with Froyen. Parenting through connection instead of coercion with Pam Leo. And the last one, the harms of gentle parenting with Froyen. I plugged those episodes into AI and asked it to create what's called a deep dive. It's an experiment, and I find it fascinating. I hope you do too. Don't worry, I am not giving up on podcasting. My intention was to explore what's possible with AI and share it with you. And wow, it's pretty impressive. If you've listened to those 6 episodes, you'll likely recognize how masterfully the AI integrated key points from each one into their conversation. My second goal was to provide a helpful recap of those episodes and inspire you to listen to the full versions. They're truly great episodes, rich conversations with brilliant ideas and practical tips. I posted all the 2024 episode titles in the Authentic Parenting Facebook group. It's a free support group for the listeners of the podcast. And if you're not part of it, you're welcome to join anytime. I posted all the episode titles and grouped them into categories for easy reference. I used the episodes under the Parenting Challenges and Solutions category to create this AI-driven episode. I would love to hear your thoughts. Did you enjoy this episode? I really value your feedback, and I am eager to know what you think. Feel free to share your thoughts and let me know if you found this AI experiment interesting. Enjoy the conversation, and thank you for listening.
Okay, wow. So this is quite the stack of parenting resources, articles, podcasts, expert opinions. Looks like you've been really digging deep into parenting styles and burnout.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to wade through. I can see you're especially drawn to this whole gentle parenting thing, but also hesitant about it going too far,
It's yeah, I get the whole gentle approach, but I'm also worried about ending up with a mini dictator running the show, that classic example. 4-year-old refuses soup, demands mac and cheese, stays up till 11. How does gentle parenting even handle that without just giving in?
That's where things get tricky, right? See, a lot of parents, they come to gentle parenting, well, they're trying to break free from that harsh discipline they experienced growing up, almost like an overcorrection, you know what I mean?
So they're reacting to their own past, trying to create the opposite of what they knew.
Yeah, exactly. And that often means they become really uncomfortable with their kids having negative emotions. It's this pressure to keep them happy all the time.
But that's not realistic, right? I mean, it's okay for kids to be sad or frustrated. It's part of life. But then how do you set boundaries? How does discipline even work without punishment? A lot of gentle parenting stuff talks about boundaries, but where's the line?
Right. That's the $1 million question. And the thing is, most of us, we just don't have good examples of non-punitive discipline. Think back to your own childhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Were you punished physically? Or maybe it was more like shame, isolation, those kinds of tactics.
It's like we're trying to learn a new language of discipline, but we don't have the vocabulary yet.
That's a great way to put it. Maybe this rings a bell. Diana Baumrien's parenting styles. Authoritarian, authoritative, permissive.
Oh yeah, vaguely. Psych 101 flashbacks. So are these newer approaches like peaceful parenting and respectful parenting aiming for that authoritative style, warm but firm approach?
Yeah, they are. But it can get confusing because they sound so similar. Peaceful parenting, that's really focused on the parent's inner state first. It's about you regulating your emotions to create a calmer environment for everyone.
So like you model that inner peace and it kind of radiates outward.
Precisely. Now, respectful parenting, that's more about emphasizing the child's inherent worth, their autonomy. You treat them with the same respect you'd give any adult. Acknowledge their feelings, their perspective.
So like that resources for infant educators approach, RIE, Meg de Gerber, Janet Lansbury, all that.
You got it. Ari is a great example of respectful parenting in action. So just to be super clear, peaceful parenting is inner calm leading to outer calm, and respectful parenting is all about honoring that child's personhood, throughout the whole parenting journey.
Okay, that distinction helps. It's not one or the other, it's striving for both. But with all this focus on finding the right approach, it's easy to get overwhelmed. That's why I kind of love that whole good enough parent idea.
Oh, the good enough parent. Yeah, such a relief to remember that, right? Yeah. Perfection is not the goal, and honestly, it's not even attainable. There are studies showing that even parents of securely attached kids, they only get their baby's cues right, like 30% of the time.
30%?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That takes so much pressure off. So it's not about being a mind reader. It's more about like the overall pattern of responding and connecting.
Exactly. But here's the thing. With these newer, gentler approaches, you're constantly trying to be attuned. You're regulating your emotions. Yeah. It can be super demanding.
Tell me about it. That's where I hit that burnout wall. It feels like gentle parenting can be really intense, like you're supposed to just put your own needs on hold forever to be this perfectly attuned parent.
That's a crucial point, and it often gets missed. Gentle parenting, it can involve a ton of emotional heavy lifting. You're always de-escalating, responding calmly, validating. Easy to lose yourself and all that. Remember that quote, adults are walking advertisements for adulthood. What are we modeling for our kids if we're running on empty all the time?
Whoa, that's a powerful image. Makes me think we need to be more intentional about self, not just for us, but for what it teaches our kids about, like healthy boundaries and relationships.
Couldn't agree more. And this whole idea of connection parenting, building that strong bond, it's so easy to mix that up with permissiveness.
Right. Where's the line? How do you stay connected to your kid, respect their feelings, but still hold those boundaries?
It's about understanding there are different ways to relate, right? Authoritarian parents, they use fear and control. Permissive parents, they're afraid of losing their kids' love if they set limits. But connection parenting, it's about building a relationship on mutual respect.
So it's not about giving in or avoiding conflict. It's more like approaching your kid with the same courtesy you'd give anyone else.
Exactly. Like imagine having dinner guests. You wouldn't berate them or manipulate them to get them to behave. You'd treat them with respect, even if you needed to, set some gentle boundaries.
I love that analogy. Makes connection parenting seem a lot less like walking on eggshells. But you know what else feels essential? But oh, so hard. Self-compassion. This seems crucial for parents, especially if you're prone to people-pleasing or neglecting your own needs.
You're hitting the nail on the head. Self-compassion, it's the foundation for everything we've been talking about. It lets us regulate our own emotions, set healthy boundaries, and show up authentically for our kids.
Okay, but before we dive deeper, quick definition check. What is self-compassion exactly?
It's simple, but not always easy to put into practice. Basically, it's treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a friend who's going through something similar. It's recognizing your own suffering without, beating yourself up about it. Understanding that we're all imperfect humans doing the best we can.
And it's not self-pity, right?
Yeah.
Or letting yourself off the hook for messing up.
Exactly. It's holding yourself accountable while also recognizing you deserve compassion, especially when you fall short. But here's the thing. If it's so beneficial, why is self-compassion such a struggle for so many of us?
Right. That's what I wonder. It seems so obvious, yet I find myself fighting against it all the time.
It's our wiring, you see. Our brains are designed to detect threats. So when we mess up or we face those tough emotions, our instinct is to go into fight, flight, or freeze mode. We criticize ourselves, isolate ourselves, try to numb the pain.
So we turn that threat response inward. Like we attack ourselves instead of facing the challenge.
Right on. That's where the conscious practice of self-compassion comes in. We have to actively choose to activate our care system instead of that threat system. It's about recognizing when you're hurting and offering yourself soothing, comfort, support.
This reminds me of that story you shared about your son's tantrum and how you realized you could only calm him down by regulating yourself first.
It was a huge aha moment for me. When he was in that state, sometimes I couldn't reach him directly, but when I focused on calming myself, breathing deeply, putting my hand on my heart, he'd eventually mirror that.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. We need to fill ourselves up with compassion before we can offer it to anyone else. Which brings me to another distinction that's always tripped me up. Self-worth versus self-esteem.
Great point. Those terms get tossed around a lot, but they're actually about different aspects of how we see ourselves.
Okay, break it down for me. What's the difference?
Self-worth is like your inherent value as a human being. It's unconditional, unwavering, and it's rooted in the simple fact that you exist. You are worthy just because you are. It's closely tied to self-compassion because it's about recognizing that you deserve love and belonging just by being yourself.
So self-worth is about being. What about self-esteem?
Self-esteem is more about doing. It's tied to your accomplishments, talents, what other people think of you. It can go up and down depending on how well you perform or what kind of feedback you get.
Got it. So both are important, but you're saying self-worth provides a much more stable foundation.
Absolutely. Because it's not dependent on anything external. It's that inner knowing that you are worthy, regardless of achievements or mistakes. And that's a powerful place to parent from.
This all goes back to modeling self-compassion for our kids, especially when we make mistakes, right?
I couldn't agree more. When we mess up as parents, which we inevitably do, it's actually a golden opportunity to show our kids that it's okay to be imperfect.
Like that example you shared about snapping at your kid, then apologizing authentically. It teaches them we're all human, and it also shows them how to repair those relationship ruptures.
That's exactly it. You're modeling accountability, responsibility, and showing them how to move forward with compassion even after making a mistake. It shows them that their worth isn't tied to being perfect. And you can dislike a behavior without withdrawing love from the child.
Such an important lesson for kids to learn, right? It helps them feel safe even when they mess up. All this talk about parenting styles makes me think about all the pressure we're under these days.
It's true. There's this constant barrage of messages about how to raise successful kids and avoid messing them up. It's no wonder so many parents feel anxious and overwhelmed.
Right. It feels like we're constantly being judged. Like every decision we make has these huge long-term consequences for our kids.
Exactly. And it often leads to this helicopter parenting style where we try to control every aspect of their lives to protect them from harm. But Emily argues in her book, Autonomy Supportive Parenting, that this approach can actually backfire.
Oh, yeah. That book really resonated with me. She talks about how important it is to nurture autonomy, competence, and relatedness in children.
Those are the key elements of autonomy supportive parenting. Instead of hovering and rescuing, we provide guidance and support while encouraging independence and problem solving.
I love that. But how do you balance this idea of fostering autonomy with our natural instinct to protect our kids?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
It's a delicate dance, for sure. Safety is always paramount, but we also need to trust our kids to navigate challenges and learn from their experiences. Overprotection can actually hinder their growth.
That makes sense. Speaking of navigating challenges, how do you approach the whole digital life dilemma? It feels like a minefield for parents these days.
It is tricky, with technology being so integrated into our lives. But instead of approaching it from a place of fear and control, try having an open and honest conversation with your child.
So instead of just laying down the law about screen time, you'd start by asking, what do you enjoy doing online? What are your favorite games or apps?
Exactly. Show genuine curiosity about their digital world. Then you can talk about your concerns, like the importance of balance and the potential downsides of excessive screen time.
And wouldn't it be helpful to involve them in the decision-making process? Maybe create a family media plan together, setting limits and expectations that everyone agrees on.
That's a great idea. It's about collaboration, not control. And it's about modeling healthy tech habits ourselves.
They're always watching us, right?
Absolutely. They're like little sponges absorbing our attitudes and behaviors. So if we're constantly on our phones, checking emails during dinner, or scrolling through social media before bed, they'll pick up on those habits.
It all comes back to modeling the behavior we want to see. This reminds me of Pam Leo's work on connection parenting. She talks about how our relationship with our child is the foundation for everything.
I love her work. She emphasizes the importance of treating children with respect, seeing them as capable individuals with their own thoughts, feelings, and perspectives.
And she makes this brilliant point about how we often confuse connection with permissiveness.
Right. Connection isn't about giving in to every demand or avoiding conflict. It's about creating a safe and loving space where children feel seen, heard, and understood.
And where they feel safe to express their emotions, even the messy ones.
Exactly, because all emotions are valid. It's about teaching children how to regulate those emotions, not about suppressing them. And you know what helps us do that?
Our old friend, self-regulation.
You got it. We need to manage our own stress and big feelings so we can respond to our children calmly and thoughtfully.
There's that saying, when it's intense, it's yours.
Right.
So if you're having a big reaction to something your child is doing, it's often a sign that something from your own past is being triggered.
That's such a helpful reminder. It's about becoming aware of our own patterns and triggers. And once we understand them, we can start to work through them and break those cycles.
So instead of passing down those old patterns of reactivity and control, we can model a healthier way of being for our children.
Exactly. We can show them what it means to be imperfect, prioritize connection, and embrace the messiness of life. And isn't that what we all want, ultimately? To raise kind, resilient, and compassionate human beings.
Yeah, you said it. It's fascinating. We've explored all these different parenting approaches.
Yeah.
Gentle parenting, autonomy supportive parenting, connection parenting. But the common thread seems to be self-awareness.
You're so right. Being an intentional parent means understanding our own motivations, beliefs, and how our own experiences shape our parenting style.
Because if we're not aware of ourselves, we're just reacting unconsciously, repeating the patterns we learned from our own childhoods.
That's where the real work begins. It's not just about raising children, it's about raising ourselves. It's about becoming the kind of people we want our children to be.
It's about embodying those values of compassion, respect, and connection in our own lives so we can authentically model them for our kids.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a lifelong journey, but it's so worth it. And remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Pick one small thing that resonates with you and start there.
Like maybe carving out a few minutes each day for self-care.
Exactly. Even if it's just a cup of tea and a few deep breaths, it can make a world of difference.
Or maybe it's being more mindful of our language, explaining our reasoning, instead of resorting to because I said so.
And offering yourself that same kindness and understanding you'd give a friend, especially when you make mistakes.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. Remember, there's no finish line in parenting. It's a continuous journey of growth and learning.
And every step we take toward becoming more conscious and intentional parents is a step in the right direction.
Well said. I think that's a great place to pause for today. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But before we wrap up completely, do you have any final thoughts to leave our listener with? Something to ponder as they continue on their parenting journey.
I do. Instead of focusing all your energy on fixing your child's behavior, what if you tried shifting that focus inward?
Inward? Like how?
What if, just for a moment, you focused on cultivating your own inner peace and self-acceptance?
Instead of trying to control everything externally, it's about like an internal transformation.
Exactly. Because here's the thing, we can't give our children what we don't have ourselves. If we're always stressed, anxious, self-critical, well, that's the energy that's coming into our parenting.
So by working on ourselves, our own inner state, we actually create a better environment for our kids.
That's the idea. Just imagine, a parent who is grounded, compassionate, but accepting of themselves. It changes the whole dynamic.
It's like shifting from fear and control to love and acceptance.
You got it. And when we model that for our children, we're giving them the greatest gift. Permission to be themselves, imperfections and all.
It all comes back to connection, compassion, presence.
Those are the seeds we want to plant, not just in our children's hearts, but in our own too. And as you nurture those seeds, remember, you're not alone in this. There's a whole community of parents out there facing the same challenges, asking the same questions.
It's so easy to feel isolated as a parent, but it's good to remember we're all in this together, right? We're all just trying to do our best.
And that's what it's all about, right? Showing up as our best selves for our kids and for ourselves. It's a journey, but it's worth it.
This deep dive has been honestly so insightful and eye-opening. Thank you for this conversation.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, parenting is a marathon, not a sprint. Be kind to yourself, keep learning, and never stop growing.
And to all the parents out there listening, you've got this. Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep loving those little humans with all your heart.
Beautifully said. That's a wrap for our deep dive today.
Until next time.